Nice to see everybody. Welcome to Tuesday Lunch and Learn. We're all set to go over here. And as always, if it's Tuesday, it must be Lunch and Learn. So I welcome everybody who's participating live and everybody who's going to watch later. Again, I welcome your comments and insights. Anything you'd like to share, I'd be happy to comment on it or to address it at a later time. So, you can't hear me. Okay. Now you can? David, you can hear me now? Is that better? Yeah? Okay, thank you. Okay, very good. So let's begin with a very interesting piece. And I'd like to talk a little bit about Moshe today, about Moshe Rabbeinu. And it's current, it's topical. This is really the last few parshiot, and Moshe is the driving force behind the giving of Torah. So the question that I want to just address momentarily is, why is he called Moshe, the name Moshe? He had many names. So let's take a look over here for a moment. And I'm going to learn together a piece with everybody from Chaim Shmulevitz. So Chaim Shmulevitz was the Mir Rosh Yeshiva, and really one of the great Rosh Yeshivas in Europe, even in Mir. During the war, he escaped with the yeshiva to Shanghai, which is in China, where he transplanted the yeshiva there during the course of the war. And then, after the war, the yeshiva relocated to Eretz Yisrael and a portion to New York. But Chaim Shmulevitz was the Rosh Yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael, and he died in the mid-1970s, I believe, but really influenced a whole generation. Chaim Shmulevitz is the name. And I'm going to read a piece from his Sichos Musar. He was a brilliant Talmud Chacham, in addition to being a tzaddik and an extraordinarily insightful into Chumash and human nature, and somebody who really influenced the generation very greatly. So Rav Chaim Shmulevitz asked a question, and you can find this in the Sichos Musar in year Lamed Beit, and it's Maimer Chafei 25. So it says as follows. We know that Kodesh Baruch Hu, it says, V'yikra el Moshe. It says, Hashem calls Moshe Rabbeinu Moshe. So the question on that is the following. First of all, Moshe is a name that Batya, the daughter of Pharaoh, gave to Moshe. It wasn't the name that Moshe had. Moshe had many names, apparently. When he was born, I guess he had certain names, or he was called other names. So it says, you can find the Midrash Rabbah, our sages say, Asher Shemos Nikud Lo Moshe. Moshe had 10 names. Yered, Chaver, Yekutiel, Avigdor, Avi Socho, Avi Zanuach. All these names. Yered, what does Yered mean? For example, Yered means to bring down. Lefisha Horit Es HaTorah Melamalo. He brought the Torah down from above. Good name to call him, the Malalamata. He was the one who brought the Torah. It was the connection between heaven and earth, as it were. Good name, Yered. Avigdor means Avim Shogodorim, the flock of fleet, of the father of the sheep, the shepherd, so to speak. Another excellent description of Moshe Rabbeinu. Chaver. He was called Chaver. What does that mean? Chaver means connection in Hebrew. Like Hebron is the city of connection, where heaven and earth connect. That's where all the burial places are. And Chevron. It also means Chaver means a friend, because a friend is someone who is connected to you. It's just why. So another name he had was Chaver. Because he was the connector that connected the children to their father in heaven. Avi Socho was another name that he had. What does that mean? Avim Shel Neviim Shesochim Baruch HaKodesh. Means Avi Socho is short for the father of prophets, Shesochim, that speak with Ruach HaKodesh, with prophecy. So many beautiful names that he possessed. So the question that Rav Chaim Shmulevitz is raising is, why did a Kodesh Baruch Hu choose to call him Moshe? Moshe, which is the name that Batya gave to Moshe when she rescued him from the water. As you know, Moshe means Mishiseu min hamayim, that he will be drawn forth, or was drawn, or will draw forth from the water. Mishiseu. It means to draw forth, to draw out of. So just to continue along the line of thinking of Chaim Shmulevitz, we'll take it, go through his steps, and so we can understand why this is the name that Hashem is interested in. Hashem's not interested in those 10 other names that they have, all beautiful names. Yered, Chaver, Yekutiel, Avigdor, Avisocho, Avizanuch, all these beautiful names. But Hashem says, I want to call him the name that Bati gave him, the daughter of Pharaoh. And the question is why? Why is that the name that Hashem says, this is what your name is? When he calls him V'yikra el Moshe, he calls to Moshe. That's his name. So Rabbi explains as follows. He says, V'hinei, inyan Hashem hu l'tayr l'hagdir et b'chuso shel adavar v'chichuso. Says we have to understand what a name is. He says the essence of a name is to describe and to define the essence of the thing and its quality. In other words, a name is more than just an external description of something. A name in the Hebrew language, in Lashon HaKodesh, in the Holy Tongue, in the way Hashem views names, is actually defining essence. So what do we mean by essence over here? Let's see what that means. So it means like this. Let's continue. He said, Matzinum Chazal, we find in our sages, gracious Rabbi, Hashem said to the angels, at the time when he created Adam, and he asked the angels, Adam zeh mativo. He said to Hashem asked the angels, he said, this man that I'm going to create, basically give him a name. Describe him to me. Describe his essence of who he is. So Amalei, the angel said back to Hashem, so what happens? Hashem then goes ahead and creates the animals. And Hashem brings the animals before Adam. Hashem brings forth the animals before Adam Arishon, Adam. Behemoths, domesticated animals, chayas, wild animals, oaks, birds, Amrle. And Adam was tasked with the job to give a name. So first Hashem turns to the angels and said, what do you say? Lo ayodim, the angels didn't know. They couldn't define the essence of the animals. Hevir lifnei Adam. Hashem then brought the animals before Adam. Amrle, Mashemo, said to Adam, what's the name of these animals? Amrle. Adam said back, Zeh Shebo Shor. They brought an ox. And Adam said, this is a shore. This is an ox. V'zeh Chamor. Brought a donkey. It's a Chamor, named a donkey. V'zeh Sus. Brought a horse. Said, this is a Sus. Brought a camel and said, Zeh Gamal. Amrle. He then asked Adam, Va'ata Mashemecha. Adam, what's your name? Amrle. Adam said, Ani no lahakros Adam shivreisi min Adama. Adam said, my name is Adam. Why? Because I was created from the Adama. I was created from the earth. Va'ani mashemi. Hashem then turned to Adam and said, what's my name? No l'chol lichros Hashem. And Adam said, the name fitting for you, to God he says, is Yud Hey Vav Hey, Ad Hashem. Why? She'ata Adon l'kol, because you're the master of everything. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kadosh Baruch Hu said, Ani Hashem. You're right, that's my name. Hu Shemi. Shekar li Adam Arishon. Why? Because that's the name that Adam Arishon chose to define me. Hashem. So let's just think this through for a moment. The idea of naming something. Apparently the angels didn't have this ability to look at something and see the essence of what it is. Adam had that ability to see. And the name that he gave wasn't just a description, it defined it. Let's see if we can take a few examples of what I mean by that. For example, he calls the camel the Gamal. Gamal. Gimel Mem Lamed. It's a perfect description of what a camel is. Why? Because the letter Gimel in Hebrew means Gomel. Gomel means to give. For example, Gomel Chasadim, to give kindness. Mem Lamed, the root Mem Lamed in Hebrew, Mal, is to, like Mila, to cut off. So he called him a Gamal. You give, and then you're cut off. What does that mean? You give, then you're cut off. Gamal, and actually the word gamal, the camel, it means kindness. It means a camel, and it means kindness. Why is that? It's because the essence of the camel is that the camel is able to fill itself up with water and then allow itself to be cut off from its source. A camel could apparently go 40 days without water, was it 30 days, I forget, but a very significant amount of time without water, I think 30 days, without water, and then cut itself off from its source, filling up, gimel, gomel, giving to itself, and mal, and then cut off. It's called a gamal. You give, and then you're cut off. You fill yourself with water, but you don't need your source anymore. How interesting, by the way, it's the same word in the Hebrew language as kindness, gomel, gamal, same word. You know, God, you have an infinite imagination. Couldn't you thought of two different words? One to mean camel, one to mean kindness? No, it's the same word. Why? Because it's the same concept. What is real kindness? Real kindness is giving and giving and giving to the other, but making the other independent of you. Giving to a point where the other is cut off from you. That's real kindness. Gomel. To give, but allow the other person independence, like the Rambam says. The Rambam says that the greatest kindness we could do for another is to set a person up in business. To allow that person to be self-sufficient is the greatest kindness. Allow that person to give them what they need, give them an education, give them the tools, give them financial means, but then allow them to be independent of you. That's the greatest kindness. Allow a person independence in this world. And that's our job as parents, by the way. Parenting class 101 over here. We give to allow independence. We don't give to allow dependence, which of course is a common error of many parents to create dependence. And we're all guilty of that. But the point is, we try to create independence. So God is saying, Adam, you name the animals, gamal, he says, you're a camel. Your essence is you give and then you're cut off. For example, he looked at the elephant and he called the elephant a pil, pei yud lamed. Perfect description of an elephant. The letter pei in Hebrew means mouth. The letter yud in Hebrew means yad, a hand. And the letter lamed in Hebrew means lamed, which means teach. So he looked at the elephant and says, you're a pei yud lamed, you're a pil. The hand on your mouth teaches. That's interesting. It's true. The peh, the hand, the trunk, is the hand of the elephant. Where does it live? It lives on the mouth of the elephant. And it teaches. What does it teach? That trunk is so powerful that it actually can lift logs. We know in many places of the world they use elephants as tractors. That trunk is so powerful that it could kill an animal with it. With a swip of the trunk, it could probably maybe even kill a lion. It's extraordinarily powerful. And yet it's so delicate that it can dissect a seed from a nut. It's both a tractor and a laparoscopic tool in a laboratory. The same organ has two opposite functions: strength and delicacy, power and precision. Only human beings can't really create that in one tool. We can create tractors and we can create laparoscopic instruments for the laboratory. But a Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem, can create it all in one tool, in that trunk. So Adam looked at the elephant and he said, your essence is your appeal. Pei yud lamed. The yad, the hand on your peh, the hand on your mouth, lamed, it teaches. What does it teach? It teaches the glory of God. How great Hashem is. Only Hashem could create such, could allow two opposites to exist together. So that's what we mean by names. And Adam said, who am I? The essence of my name is I'm Adam. Why? Because I was created from the Adamah. I was created from the dirt. Now it's interesting, Adamah in Hebrew, Adamah is an interesting word. Because Adamah, it's true it means dirt, but the same letters, when you vowel them a little differently, can be voweled as Adameh, which means I shall compare myself. Or if you take it apart, it can be Aleph Domeh. I want to be similar. Domeh means similar. Domeh to the Aleph. Aleph is the oneness of God. So Adama can mean dirt. It could also mean to be like God, to be compare oneself to God. So it's interesting. What's the essence of dirt? The essence of dirt is its value is what you do with it. It lives in potential. So Adam is basically saying the essence of who I am is I live in potential. I'm given a raw material. I'm invested with a soul. I'm invested with the Yetzer Tov. I have a struggle with the Yetzer Hara. I have a struggle with a physical body. But who I'm going to become is up to me. My greatness is I'm like dirt. I live in potential. So Adam was able to look at the world and he was able to describe its essence. And that's why he was given the task of naming the animal kingdom and naming himself. And even the name he chooses for Hashem. As he said, Kodesh Baruch Hu says to him, Adam, what's my name? And he says, you are Ado Shem. Hu Shemi, Shekar Li La'adam Rishon. And that Hashem says, yeah, that's my essence. And that's what I choose to be called. So we see a name is more than a description. A name is actually the essence of what something is in the Hebrew language. So let's go a little further, this concept that Rav Chaim Shmulevitz says. He says, Chochma zu shakriyas shem, l'davar hi chochma elyon l'mala mi chochmas malachim. This ability of Adam to see that essence was even greater than the angels. Ki shmo shel adavar hu agdara hamamatza kol mahus v'nyano shel adavar. Because the name of something defines it and is the essence of the matter at hand. So he says like this. Moshe Rabbeinu had 10 names. Each name was very unique and described a different aspect of Moshe. However, it says, Amalok Charish Baruch LeMoshe. Hashem says to Moshe, Moshe, you have many names. I choose to call you the name that Batya called you, which was Moshe, that you were brought forth of the water. Question is why? V'tikru Shema Moshe. And we know that he called him Moshe. V'havi Yikru Moshe. We see another pasuk and he called to Moshe. Yesh lisbonen kan b'tarti. Let's introspect into this. What Chaim Shmulevitz says. Let's think deeply into the matter. Chada. 1. Ma matzah Kodesh Baruch Hu Shem. Say yes, sir. Al shor shemosa shemosha. Why did Kodesh Baruch Hu? What did Kodesh Baruch Hu want in this? What did he see in this name more than the other names? Shulachora mevim yosa es kadus shemosha mishem Moshe atzmo. That apparently it must express the greatness of Moshe more than the other names. The fact that Moshe was brought forth from the water somehow defines Moshe in a way that the other names don't define him. This is his essence, as we've been saying, that a name that Adam called the animals, the name that Hashem is choosing for Moshe, has to be that this is your essence. More so than those other 10 names, which are beautiful names. Yered, that he brought the Torah down from Shemayim. Chaver, that he joined together heaven and earth. Avi Socho, that he's the father of prophecy. These are amazing descriptions, and that they were the essence of Moshe. But being brought forth from the water, Hashem is saying, that is your essence. Who you really are is defined by that name. Now it's interesting, that name is a name which Batya named him, and it describes an event in his life. How could that name be the essence of who he is? It's what happened to him. It's not who he is, it's what happened. It's a description of how he was rescued. So let's see what Chaim Shmulevitz says about this. I think we'll see something extraordinary over here. So he says that this name he says, near the Vayr. Let's try to understand this. He says, near the Vayr, that Ki mishiseu shel Moshe min hamayim. That when Batya drew forth Moshe from the water, it says, Chaisa ayudei mesirus nafsho shel Batya she'ovra al mitzvos aviyah kedei lahatzel nefesh. we have to understand something about what Batya did. When Batya rescued Moshe, we know the story that in the decree that Pharaoh made, that all babies, boys had to be murdered. So Yocheved, the mother of Moshe, decides that she's going to rescue Moshe, and she creates a basket and she places him al Sufa Yam on the banks of the Nile, and places him in there, not knowing what will be. She really didn't know what was going to become. It was 3 months after Moshe was already born. Apparently the Egyptians used to watch and monitor pregnancies, so they knew when most likely someone gave birth. So she was able to actually hide Moshe for 3 months, but after 3 months she couldn't hide him anymore. So she creates a cradle of some nature, and she places him in a little boat, so to speak, and puts him on the water. And then it says Batya, the daughter of Pharaoh, goes down to the water to bathe with her servants, and she hears baby crying. And it says something very interesting, by the way, in the Chumash. It says that she reaches out her arm, she extends her arm, and she brings forth that cradle to the shore, to where she's standing. So it's interesting that reaching forth in her arm is a very interesting image that the Torah uses, that she extends her arm, amasa it's called, her arm. And different explanations. Some say amasa, maybe it means her servants. It's the same, amma is a servant. Maybe she sent her servant to get the cradle. Some midrashim say that her arm, or maybe just at her arm, she extended her arm. What does it mean she extended her arm? So some want to say, well, extending her arm means that there was some miracle that happened, that the arm lengthened and extended outward, and she was able to reach a distance beyond from where she was standing. And oftentimes you see kids, when they're studying this particular parsha in school, so the mara, the teacher, will make a project for little kids, and sometimes it's a long arm. And you say, what's that long arm doing? And long arm is, that's Batya's arm. That's just bitya, really, in the Torah. Bitya, not Batya. I'll say Batya, just a little easier. But so it extends the arm, that's the long arm. But I think, the Midrashim, we don't really need to look, I think, for a supernatural explanation to understand what that means. Maybe the Midrash is really just saying something more simple than that. It's saying that Batya went beyond herself in rescuing Moshe. She extended herself. What does that mean? The extension of herself says that the rescue of Moshe by the daughter of Pharaoh was through Mesiras Nafsha, through tremendous self-sacrifice. Why? Kimin Shahatzos Moshe was actually against the decree of Pharaoh. It says that with the self-sacrifice of Batya, by doing so, she'ovra al mitzvos aviyah k'dei lahatzel nefesh. She broke the law. She went against the wishes of her father. That could have been a death sentence. She did not know that her father would respond positively to this. She did not know that he would end up eventually raising him and Moshe being part of the palace. She took a chance. It was a huge risk. But something inside of herself stirred, and she said that a baby is crying. Something evoked a sense of her compassion, her rachamim, her chemla, and she said, I have to do something. So the extension of the arm really, really doesn't need to be explored, in supernaturally. It means she extended herself. She went beyond herself in order to save Moshe. Tremendous Mesiras Nefesh. And the way it looks like what Chaim Shmulevitz is expressing is, it might even be close to risking her life. Maybe it's a part of the story that we don't think about so much, that the danger she put herself in by saving the life of Moshe. So he continues and he says that V'kemen shehatzalas Moshe hayis aydei ma'aseh b'siras nefesh. Since the saving of Moshe was done through an action which required enormous self-sacrifice on the part of the daughter of Pharaoh, nichnas koach zeh shel b'siras nefesh b'gufo u'b'nafsho shel Moshe Rabbeinu. What happened? Nichnas koach zeh. It entered into Moshe Rabbeinu the quality of her self-sacrifice. It became part and parcel of Moshe Rabbeinu. Niknas koach zeh shel mesiras nefesh begufo benafsho shel Moshe Rabbeinu. Her self-sacrifice to save his life, her ability to reach beyond herself to care about another human being, because of what she did, that became part of him. That became his part of his whole spiritual essence. And listen to this amazing statement now of Chaim Shmulevitz. Ki kol ma shenosein, ki kol ma shehanosein nosein lemekabel. Whatever a giver gives to the receiver, magia el mekabel, it arrives to the receiver, v'niknas bo below shiur, and enters into the receiver without any limitation. It becomes part of the one who received. V'koach mesiras nefesh shehaya leMoshe Rabbeinu. And therefore, the ability of Moshe Rabbeinu throughout his life to dedicate himself to the Jewish nation, to reach in every situation beyond himself, and to care about others, that was a function of the Mesiras Nefesh shel Batya bas Paro, of the dedication and self-sacrifice that Batya demonstrated and breathed into him, so to speak, by what she did. Ulechein, and therefore, Shem ze Moshe, the name Moshe, Hainu Tomtsis Ofyu shel Moshe, it became the expression of the essence of Moshe, Yosef Mikol Shemosov, more than any other names that he possessed. Let's think about this, if we can, for a moment. It looks like the essence of who Moshe was, a quality that he displayed throughout his life, was his ability to sacrifice himself for others, to be concerned with others, to reach beyond himself in every situation. First of all, we see it. We don't have many stories in the Chumash about Moshe Rabbeinu in his younger years. What do we see? We see, number one, he grows up in the house of Pharaoh. It says that at a certain age, as a young man, he goes out and v'yar b'sivlosam, he sees their suffering. He's aware of their suffering. He goes out and he looks at it, and he starts walking amongst his people. And then we're told a story of him witnessing an Egyptian beating a Jewish man, and he takes action. He kills that man because of that injustice. As a result, he's sentenced to death by Pharaoh, and he has to flee. He flees to Midian. And then another story occurs, one of the few stories about the first 80 years of Moshe Rabbeinu's life. Torah gives us very few stories, but gives us these two stories. He goes to the well in Midian, and there are shepherds there who are really, through tremendous, just unjustly and violently preventing people from utilizing this well. And the daughters of Yitro aren't able to graze their sheep. And Moshe comes in, and right away, first thing he does is he stands up against this injustice, and he scatters these unlawful shepherds, and it attracts the attention of Yitro. Who was that man that was there? And eventually, Yitro makes the shidduch with his daughter. So it's with Zipporah. So the two stories we get about Moshe Rabbeinu's life are stories of self-sacrifice, of standing up, of dedication. And then the next part of his life, from 80 to 120, that we have a little more information on, because now he's going down to Egypt, he's to take the Jewish people out of Egypt. The ability he has to give his entire life for the Jewish nation, to the extent that after the sin of the golden calf, when God says, I want to start again, I want to create a new nation, Moshe Rabbeinu, you're going to be the father of this new nation, let's start over. And Moshe says, if that's your plan, he says, Macheni mesifrecho, erase my name from your book. I don't want to have any part of it. I love these people too much. This ability to have sacrificed himself physically, spiritually, emotionally, to give his entire life. Where did he inherit this from? He got this from the daughter of Pharaoh when she rescued him. The act which she did of self-sacrifice didn't just touch him externally, it affected his whole core, where this became his essence. And therefore, when Hashem looks at him and says, "Who are you?" I'm not just calling you Moshe because you were drawn forth from the water. I'm calling you Moshe, why? Because being drawn forth from the water through that amazing self-sacrifice of the daughter of Pharaoh, that became your essence. The essence of you is the ability to sacrifice for others because of that action. The name isn't just a description of the external event. The name now is a description of the essence of what you have become as a result of that event. Now, I want to add, and just want to fill the gaps here a little bit and talk about this for a moment. What does this mean? I think we're being given a really important insight into the effect that we can have on other people in this world. When we do for another, when we do kindness, we sacrifice for another. When we do for a child, we're not just teaching that child that your kindness is a good thing and emulate me. We're actually instilling in that human being the quality and the ability to do the same action. We're transforming them from within through that. In other words, one might tend to look and say, well, we do an act of kindness, especially, I guess, we think this in terms of children, or it could be anybody. By doing that act of kindness, we're doing something good, and the person learns from that and says, yeah, I want to be like that also, and that's true. But there's a deeper insight. When we do for another, we transform the other. That person picks up the spiritual gene that we possess. The spiritual gene of self-sacrifice was transmitted to Moshe through that action. That person has been transformed from within. That person is not just going to copy from without because it was a good thing to do. That person has inherited that spiritual quality. Moshe's ability to sacrifice was a function of what Batya did for him. She risked her life for Moshe. And Moshe was therefore able to risk his life, or put his life secondary and his whole essence second to the needs of others, because he inherited that spiritual gene from Batya. And when Akadosh Baruch Hu says, "What's your name?" I said, "What I want to call you." You have 10 other names, but your essence became Moshe, being drawn forth from the water. You were drawn forth from the water. That is your essence now. You have the ability to draw other people forth from the water now, as a result of that. That became you. So I'll tell you, I was particularly inspired by this piece. And I hope you were. I was particularly inspired by it. First of all, just answer that question, which I think is such an important question. Why Hashem calls him Moshe? It wasn't the name that he was given by his parents, and it was a name given to him by the daughter of Pharaoh, and it's a description of an event, not the essence of who he is. And then reading this piece by Chaim Shmulevitz, and this enormous insight that this became the essence of who he was. What she did for him transformed him from within, spiritually. Now, he was just a baby. He was the recipient. He wasn't conscious of what was happening. He wasn't aware to say, well, I want to emulate that. But the act itself transformed. So where this particularly touched me is in the realization of how we can influence other people. Sometimes we think, well, if I speak to the person, I'll be able to convince them or be able to help shape them. That's true. That does do something, no question. But we have to understand something else. What we do for others, the acts that we do for others, the self-sacrifice that we have for others, the kindness that we show, going beyond ourselves to give and to do, and to extend our arm, as it were, in a way that maybe we didn't even know we could do, that becomes part of the other person. That person inherits that spiritual trait from us. We should know how powerful we are, how we can influence people in such a positive way. whether it be students, whether it be friends, whether it be children, our own children, whether it be members of the Jewish people that we're trying to affect. What we do for them enters inside of them in a way that they don't even know. It becomes part of their spiritual core. So I just think that, with this insight, perhaps we can go forth into the world almost invigorated, empowered to understand that our actions are so meaningful. We might not always see it right away. People might not always say thank you. We might not always appreciate that we have affected a life. But Rav Chaim Shmuel Levis is teaching us enormous insight. We have affected them. We've transmitted our spiritual genetic into that person. And that person has been transformed in the process. So I say, just hope we appreciate the power of who we can be and the power of our actions. And there's a little bit of a lesson that we learned from Moshe Rabbeinu and why HaKadosh Baruch Hu chooses to call Moshe. I wish everybody a wonderful week, continued week, and to go forth in this week just with this new realization of the power we possess to affect the lives of others. Wish you a wonderful week, everybody. See you next week.